Okay. Check 1, 2.
All right.
Go ahead.
Ready?
Check your mic.
Okay, checking.
You're good. You.
1, 2, 1, 2. We are with cousin Judy.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey listeners, ever wonder what it would be like to blow up your comfort zone at the tender age of 50? Well, we did just that. When our last kid went off to college, we hit the road in search of a new hometown. Now we bounce from city to city and bring you along for the ride. This is the Skiptown All-Stars podcast.
Welcome back, All-Stars, to another special edition where we have our favorite cousin, Cousin
back.
Judy. She's back. Today we are going to be talking about cruises with your favorite and mine, Cousin Judy. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back
Thanks. Yeah.
to the show. And by coming back, I mean thank you for inviting us back to your house.
It's fun talking to cousin Judy. We had a great time talking to her about travel within the United States on our last visit with her. And this time we're going to rack her brain about all things cruises.
That's right. But before we get into that, you actually brought a second special guest. Why don't you tell us what we have here?
Yes.
This is a very special handmade ornament that I got from one of the village ladies in Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe.
Oh, so we're going to have it as our, what do you call
Mascot.
it?
She's, yes.
Mascot. Yeah.
She's
We're
our
go-
spiritual advisor for this episode. I like it.
Very cute.
Okay, so cruises. I used to work on cruise ships. I was on Carnival Cruise Lines and then Holland America for a total of a year. And because of that, and because of what I had seen below deck, I was always very hesitant to take Denise on a cruise, just because I was like, I don't know, they're kind of dirty, they're kind of filthy down there.
No,
Sometimes
you actually
there's water
said
problems.
to me, let's be clear, you said, I will never take you on a cruise ship. I know what the food is like. I know what they
That's
do
true.
with it. We will never go.
It's true. But it seems to be that I, again, am in the minority because tons of people are taking cruises all over the world. So we're going to talk about that today. Questions?
Why does everyone over the age of 65 go on a cruise?
Well, that's a pretty easy question to answer, because as we get older, it's much more difficult for us to hop on and off a train with our luggage, to negotiate the highways of a foreign country in a rental car without being scared to death all the time.
Okay.
Right.
And to have that, and also for a lot of people to have that question of the unknown. I'd really like to see this city. I'd really like to go to this place, but I don't know where I would stay. And, there's really not much
Right.
else to do there, maybe.
Okay.
So instead of having to travel around and take trains, planes, and automobiles, then it's a one-stop thing. You get on the cruise ship, you unpack, and then you don't pack up until you leave again. So that is,
Okay.
I mean, that's a very, very big draw for people who are, and especially people who have already traveled to a lot of places. Maybe in their younger days, they did that backpack thing around Europe,
Sure.
or maybe they did the train thing around Europe, if they could afford more than backpacking.
Got it.
And so now they're ready for a little bit more of I won't say pampered, because it's not necessarily every cruise line pampers you. There are certainly top echelon ones, but it's just that you feel safe, you feel secure, you feel like you've got guides to handle everything for you. You don't have to worry about if you got a guide who doesn't show up, or a guide who takes you to a strip show instead of
Right. Uh-huh.
instead of the Moulin Rouge, it's
Right.
a seedy strip show, and
Sounds like my
for
kind
the
of
Montmartre.
excursion.
So that's basically the reason that most people especially over 60, and even really over 55 nowadays, and the cruises have really truly morphed into the type of thing where they can offer some really good in-depth excursions, not just like, okay, get off and Pietro here, the Italian guy, will get on the bus and he'll drive you down to Herculaneum or, to Pompeii and then grab your headsets and you're on your own kind of thing. It's morphed
Right.
into very personalized. They've become very, very more astute at their destinations and their stops that they're making on these cruise lines. And they try to, especially these days, hire all local guides.
Oh,
wow.
okay.
And that's very, very important.
Why? But well, how are they doing it in the past?
Well, they may have somebody who's, on board the ship as an entertainer, so
yeah.
to speak, or whatever,
Yeah.
and he might run that
Oh,
short excursion for
Really?
you.
Okay.
But now they've become very attuned to the fact that people want a good experience. If they want to be on a cruise ship, they'll just head to the Caribbean. That's it,
Yeah.
and get off and go to a beach and lie in the sun or whatever.
Okay.
But now they've become, whether they're upscale or even budgetary these days, they've become much more attuned to what the clientele wants. And I mean, especially since COVID, they can't build enough ships to keep up.
I know, it's crazy.
Seriously.
I've read
What?
so
Okay,
many
hold-
stories. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes no sense because after COVID, you would think people would not want to be on a ship with a million people.
No.
Wait, why?
Absolutely the opposite. Because there again, the cruise industry has had its metamorphosis and they now understand, they're very much highly regulated as far as sanitation goes. I mean, highly regulated these days. So they feel much more comfortable now than they did, let's say 20 years ago or
Yeah.
however long it
96
was.
was when I was on boats.
Yeah. So it's a very, very changed industry. And so people now feel much more comfortable. So that's why. And not only that, but they stopped the shipbuilding for a while during COVID. And so now everybody's scrambling to get, on a cruise that if they have a specialty cruise that they want to go on.
Right.
It can be difficult. I had a client who's been waiting 2 years for a cruise from Tahiti to Auckland because he wanted a cruise that stopped in Singapore, which the last time he went, he missed out on Singapore. So, that kind of thing, there are people who are very particular about that kind of thing. And again, like I said, there are people who've been to destinations before, and now maybe they want to revisit those destinations, but they don't want the hassle of, like I said, the train, plane, automobile, checking in and out of hotels constantly,
Right.
and that kind of thing.
So I have a question because I've never been on a cruise. When you're on a cruise and you want to book an excursion, you book it through the cruise line and all you do is show up and they have the car waiting for you and everything else, or does everyone on a ship do an excursion at every port, or does some people stay back?
No, because there are plenty of, for instance, I was on a ship once that stopped in Sorrento. Really? This is my fourth time to Sorrento. I think I'm just going to stay on the boat.
Oh, okay.
So, that certainly happens because there might be other ports that you really want to go to
Right.
on that particular cruise. So maybe there's one port or even two. So, everybody's very different. And I think we talked about this before. A lot of people really enjoy days at sea. That's not for me. I
Right.
get completely bored
Okay.
for days at sea. So if there's someone who wants a cruise that is in that same mindset that I am about that, then I would find them a cruise that has no days at sea.
Right. Right.
know,
So
you look for that.
Explain that for our listeners. So days at sea would be a type of cruise from where to where?
Well, it can be anywhere. For instance, let's say the cruise started in Haifa,
Okay.
in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And then your next stop was let's say right down the road, just south of, Tel Aviv, let's say.
Okay.
But then after that, you were headed to Bodrum, which is on the southern coast of Turkey.
Yeah.
So you're going to need a day to get to Bodrum.
Sure.
So that would be a day at sea. Or let's say you're crossing from, you're going, let's say, from Rome, and the first stop is actually Messina, Sicily.
Okay.
then that's going to be a day at sea.
Right.
So it's not just the transatlantic crossings or what we in the industry
so
call
those are the ones where it's
repositioning.
like you get so many days at sea.
Right,
The
right.
ones where you're
But,
actually,
can be like 5 days at sea.
Not in a row though.
Yes, in
Yeah.
a row, because let's say you're taking what we call a transitioning cruise.
what did
In
you,
a-
what do
in
you
a
think?
row?
It just starts flying at some point?
You better it's a lot of spa days and bridge days. you
Yeah,
know?
I was thinking that you break
And
that up. Like,
There's
That's the
nowhere
point.
to break it
There's
up.
nowhere to break it up. There's no land.
I don't. That's a long time in the water.
It is a
So
long time in the
usually
water.
those happen. Let's say there's a repositioning cruise from Barcelona or Madeira or Cadiz or that area. That's one of the main repositioning cruise areas that or even Lisbon, and they'll hit maybe a couple of ports, maybe in the Azores even before they head out to the open Atlantic.
Right.
And then it's 5 days if you're coming to Fort Lauderdale, maybe
Right.
even 6. Sometimes if you're just going to New York, it might only be 4.
Okay, got it.
But
Wow.
that's a lot of days. But I have, clients in the past who absolutely adore that.
They
Okay.
love being
That's
on
what
the
it-
boat that long.
I'm always like, you know what? I can sit at home and watch TV
Yeah.
or sit by my
Yeah.
own pool. I don't have to pay such and such,
Right.
$300 a night to do
But
that.
for some people who don't have a pool and some people who don't see the sun, live in like the Northwest or the North, like, not a climate that always lends itself to many months of being sunny and warm, then that sounds like a dream.
Well, sometimes yes, but it always depends on the W.
The
Word.
weather.
The weather.
Are you telling me that somebody from like North Dakota could go on a cruise thinking they're going to be out to sea for 5 days with sun and it could rain?
Yeah.
Oh, and it can be very choppy because
Oh, I'd be
normally
sick.
the repositioning cruises happen in for instance April when they're coming from Europe to come down to the Caribbean, usually like towards the or going back over rather from the Caribbean or Fort Lauderdale or Miami, let's say.
Okay.
So that's usually like anywhere from the 1st to mid-April. You never know what storms are out there in the Atlantic, in April.
Okay.
And then the same thing coming back. They're all headed back like mid-October, at least the third, maybe even the third week of October.
Yeah. I remember
So-
on one particular cruise, and I think it was around the time, so one of my ports was Miami, and somewhere past Cuba, probably on the way to South America somewhere, I remember we had some really rough weather. I felt fortunate. I already had my sea legs at that point.
Yeah.
And I remember I was walking down one of the corridors and I saw one of the cabin stewards all the way at the other end. And it was the weirdest perspective because it literally looked like the boat was rocking so hard. It
He
looked
was
like
bouncing.
it looked like the hallway turned and smacked him in the head. And it was really just like we were both like stumbling around or whatever. But I remember he took a shot
yeah.
against the wall
Yeah.
because it had tilted so hard.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I now I kind of know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I had that experience once in the Tasman Sea, off the South Island of New Zealand, where the boat was literally locked. We were literally locked down for 3 days.
What does that mean, locked down?
They locked our balcony doors. We could not go out on our balconies. They locked the entrances to the outside decks. You could not go out on an outside deck. They closed the gym. They closed the salon. They closed the spa.
Wow.
So you were just
I've never had that experience.
Yeah.
So you were forced to just stay in your cabin inside the dining room and all of that area.
Mhm.
Like, oh.
For safety reasons.
Right,
Of course.
right, exactly. So it happens. I mean, nobody can ever predict the weather,
Yeah.
So it does happen. But, I would try to direct my clients to, a specific time of year. For instance, on river cruises, you have to be very careful because, especially on the Danube, which is not a truly deep river. And if it gets too high and the river boats can't get through the locks, they take you off and put you on a bus.
Wow.
Or if the river gets too
Wow.
low and they've had a drought, they take you off and put you on a bus. Now, who wants to go climbing aboard a bus for the next 3 days of a trip when you were supposed to be on this beautiful river cruise?
Right.
So you have to be very careful about, the timing of where you go and when you go.
Those trips that have multiple sea days, those are a little less expensive, correct? In terms of budget?
Only the transitioning.
The transition.
Only the transitioning, because a lot of the trips, especially to the South American trips, or there aren't many going to the Baltic these days, but if you were headed, let's say, from Dover over to the Baltic, might be 2 days at sea in a row. A lot of the trips that would include like Tahiti and Bali, and those, if you're making your way then down to Singapore or over to Auckland or New Zealand or somewhere, then that's going to have a couple of days back to back at sea. But none of them would have the 4 or 5 days that
Right.
you know, in a row.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I have a friend who's on a round the world cruise right now,
Uh-huh.
and it's a 120-day cruise.
Right.
So I'm sure she's going to probably have 20 days of that at sea.
Wow.
You know, maybe
Yeah.
even 25. But since she's going around the world, it's, you know,
Yes.
to
Right.
be
Kind of
expected.
makes sense. Part of the
Or if you're
beast.
going around the continent of Africa, let's say.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like Rome to Sorrento, or,
Right.
you know,
Right.
it's not like Bordeaux to Provence to Marseille. You know, you can't
How
get
long
there.
does a cruise around the continent of Africa take?
It depends. They're usually about 12 or 14 days, depending on, and then you might have some ground time. You might start in Cape Town, for instance. So that's usually about 10 or 12 days. And that's for people who maybe they've already done safaris. Maybe they've already done the interior. And they
Right.
just want to do something different, but they want to go back to that continent.
So out of those 14 days, how many port cities would you get on average?
Well, let's say it's 12 days. You probably get maybe like 9 ports.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, for people who don't want to be bouncing from car to plane, this and that, you are really bouncing from boat to land quite a bit. I mean, that's a lot of in and out.
Well, it's not really that way, because the cruise ships now, since every port in the world has a, you know, St. Bart's didn't used to have a, you know, and they're building one.
Oh, okay.
And on what else is the other island down there? St. Lucia didn't used to have one. Now they have a port. So the ships come right up there into port. All you have to do is walk down that little gangplank and get right onto your, or normally they're most of the time they're docked right in town. So for instance, when the ship docks at Rhodestown in Greece, on the island of Rhodes,
Uh-huh.
it's a 150-yard walk to right in the middle of Rhodestown,
Okay.
you know, or to your minivan or whatever you're taking out to Lindos or somewhere else on the island,
On your excursions.
you know, or if you have hired a private, you know, secured a private excursion because you don't like any of those that they're offering, that car will come right up to the ship.
Got it.
In most places, you know, there are some smaller places, but in most places that's
And the
what it
other
is.
point is you don't have to bring your stuff with you every single time you're coming off the
No.
ship to go
Yeah.
into town. Like every time
That's-
you come to a port, you just, you know, all your clothes are still hanging in your cabin.
Right. And
So-
and I think that's how my husband really got hooked. And besides that, he always thought that sailing, cruise ship sailing, was so formal and you had to get dressed up
Yeah.
every night and all of this. But there again, the industry has really changed a lot. I mean, except for a couple of formal nights on certain cruise lines, no tie.
Okay.
You know, and you can even get away with, you can be belligerent enough to say, I refuse to wear a sport coat, and they're not going to throw you out, kind
Okay.
of thing.
And that's on most cruise lines now.
Yes, but
Okay.
this was a cruise line that was almost like yachting. It was a very small ship. It even had sails.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
And it was very, very relaxed. Open collar shirt, you know, no reservations
What
for dinner.
cruise line
that
is
kind
this?
Of, that's
what
called,
boat was that?
That's called Windstar.
Windstar.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have, I believe they now have 4 ships, actually.
How
but
many
that's it.
people are allowed? Like, how many people can come on the ship? How like 150, 75, 20? On that Windstar.
On that particular
Yeah.
ship, I believe it was about 90.
Okay.
So extremely small.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the next lineup that has very, very small, intimate ships is Silver Sea.
Silver Sea, I've never heard of.
They have very small, intimate ships.
Okay.
What's the
Where do
what is
they-
Ingrid Bergman's daughter's name?
Oh, Candace Bergman. Candace,
No,
right?
No, it's not Candace, but it's she's an actress too.
Oh, Isabella Rossellini.
Isabella
Yeah.
Rossellini. Yes.
Me for the
Well,
win.
she is the godmother
never got
of the
that.
Silver Sea ships.
What do you
Oh.
mean?
Yeah, she's well, usually
Oh, you mean she's their spokesperson?
yes.
Okay, got it.
Well, I don't know if she is anymore, probably
she used
since
to be.
COVID. But and she was called the godmother. So she christens all the ships, and although
Wow.
they only have 4 ships.
Okay.
But their ships run anywhere from about 250 to about 450 passengers, which is very, very small comparatively to, as I'm sure you're probably aware,
Yeah.
I'm not.
the Norwegian gym or whatever, one of the Norwegians can house as many as 6,000 people.
Okay, so
Yeah.
here's my question. When you have a ship with 6,000 people, how do you do excursions for all of them? How many people to an excursion? Like 50?
Yeah, probably. And they have it, they have it down pat pretty much.
That means there's trucks of
Yes.
buses lined
yes,
up.
Yes, for those ships, yes.
okay.
Yes. I'm lucky enough to say I've never been on one of those big ships like that.
Oh,
Okay.
well,
The
I
largest
have.
I've been on was a Regent ship, which back then they were known as Radisson,
Okay.
but now the line has changed their name to Regent. And I believe that it was the Diamond, which no longer exists, but I believe it was 800 passengers.
Okay.
So that's the largest ship I've been on.
Oh,
But I have visited other ships. I've been down to Fort Lauderdale to a cruise agents, conference, and where
Yeah.
we're allowed to board, their newest ships and whatnot. So I've been on a Norwegian ship. I've been on an MSC cruise ship.
Uh-huh.
I've been on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship.
Okay.
So I have been on. I just haven't cruised on one.
got it.
Got
But
Okay.
it's overwhelming in size and
Yeah, they really are. I mean, I was on the Carnival Imagination, and I think it was maybe 2,000 to 3,000 passengers, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Back
Yeah.
then, it was considered really large.
Yeah.
But to your earlier question, I remember when we went to the Mayan ruins,
Uh-huh.
there were like 4 buses of people
yeah.
that day.
Oh, at
And
least.
so they would
Okay.
truck
Yeah.
us all out
Okay.
there. And,
yeah.
All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty. Since you've done so many of these, I'm not going to ask you yet for dirt or anything like that. On
We're
any of the
getting
cruise lines.
into that. We
I
are
know,
getting into that.
But I want to know favorite cruises you've ever taken in different parts of the world, or just name that, like a domestic cruise, an international cruise, one of each.
I've never taken a domestic cruise because
Okay.
those are really only river cruises, and there
Okay,
are a couple
makes
of
sense.
companies that specialize in them. They may go up and down the Mississippi,
Sure.
or they may go up along the coast of Maine and Massachusetts, or they may go down along the coast of Virginia, North and South Carolina, or they may do the Snake River out in
Okay.
out west. But so I have not done one of
Okay,
those.
so
but
what about like leaving from a domestic port, like leaving from Miami or leaving from?
I've left on a cruise from Miami a couple of times. I did a cruise last January, which was a pretty comprehensive island cruise. We hit, all the saints, St.
Okay.
Bart, St. Lucia, St. Martin,
Okay.
and then Antigua and St. John's and BBI. So it
Okay.
was it was a pretty comprehensive, Turks and Caicos. So
How
it
long
was
was
a
that?
pretty.
It must have been like a couple.
It was 14
weeks.
days.
Okay,
Yeah. It was 14 days, and we would not have had a day at sea except that St. John's wouldn't let us dock. Wouldn't
Oh.
even let us dock.
Really?
Well, they were still in COVID, kind of.
Oh, they were in.
They were still in.
protocols.
Yeah,
Got it.
they were still in, and so you were asking about sanitation and that kind of thing and whatnot. So now there is in most ports, they have set up this protocol where the ship has to report any COVID cases that they may have on board.
Mm-hmm.
And if they report more than like 5% of the entire number of people on board, they're not allowed to dock.
Oh, wow.
So, for instance, if there are, if there are 300 passengers, which is about what there were on this Caribbean cruise, and let's say there are 300 personnel, that's 600 people. So if they hit that 30, excuse me, if they hit that 30 mark of positive COVID cases, go away. We don't want you anywhere near us.
Oh, wow.
Because, it was 2021. It was still, it's not as if, COVID was quite as dormant then as it is, now.
Right.
Now. So, but, so they have all kinds of protocols and it's gotten even more stringent since COVID.
Wow.
So I don't think anybody should be afraid sanitation wise to take a cruise.
Okay.
Is that right?
Especially depending on which cruise line you choose.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Because if you have a very, very large cruise ship, let's say you have 6,000 passengers, and let's say you have 2,500 crew members, what are the chances that a percentage of those crew members are not going to be as stringent in their hygiene as they would if you only had, say, 400 crew members?
I can tell you from the smell down on D deck, this percentage is really high.
But anytime you have a larger number, you're going to have a larger percentage of that possibility. So out of 2,500 crew members, there's going to be a certain percentage of them that aren't as actively hygienic as they should be or supposed to be. Whereas you have crew members who are on a higher tiered cruise line, then they vet them and they check them constantly.
Okay.
And if you have, let's say 500 passengers on that boat, you may well only, you may have 250 is all crew members instead of 2,500.
Right.
Like
Okay,
one
of
crew,
course,
because a lot of them do. They advertise that. They like to say we have one crew member for every two
person.
close to every two passengers.
Oh, that's impressive, don't you think?
Yeah.
That is impressive.
Yes.
From a service standpoint.
Right,
yeah.
but she's
Yes.
saying also then for you to be careful from a sanitary standpoint.
Exactly.
Yeah, if they can keep a lid on it, sure.
Right.
So we talked last time we were with you, we talked about vacation trends, like some places are more trending than others during certain times of a decade. I mean, honestly, like it could be like in the 90s, it was one thing, 2000s another, whatever, even 5 years ago, people were doing, what dude ranches. Are there trends in cruises?
Yes.
What is the current trend?
Oh, riverboats.
Yeah.
They cannot build enough riverboats to keep up with
Is
the
that right?
Are you talking
the
about
number of
domestic
passengers.
or international riverboats?
Well, both.
Oh, tell
Both.
us about that.
But especially European river cruises, because they were always like not really highly touted, and they were like, I don't. But they gained a lot of ground by the correct marketing is what they did.
Oh, what is that?
They said stop right in town. Walk right off the boat and go right to the flower market in Amsterdam and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Take your bicycle from the boat and just, start tooling around the villages or whatever in this
Get
countryside.
right in there. You don't have to take a bus. You're right there.
Right. So that's how, it was really pretty much strictly marketing on their part. And I'm sure everybody watches PBS and there isn't hardly a person in the universe that hasn't heard of Viking river cruises.
Okay, tell us about those.
So they're the largest river cruise line, and they have probably, I don't know, they maybe have 24 boats.
Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah. And there are a lot of boats now plying these rivers that of course, it used to be maybe, I don't know, half a dozen boats during one particular, let's say, couple of weeks stretch on the Danube or the Rhine.
Okay.
Well, now there's like 40 of them.
Ooh.
I've even stopped at certain ports where they lay the planking out and you go up on the top deck and you actually have to walk over 2 more boats that got there before you to dock.
Are you kidding?
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it's still very small. These ships are very small. They're very intimate.
When you say small, give me a number.
Okay, so let's say at most like 150 passengers.
Oh, that is very small. Okay.
Maybe some of them as low as 90. When I went on the Nile cruise, my boat held 55.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's the Nile. I mean, it's not,
Right.
it can't handle those much bigger boats. So for the most part, I think it's either about 90 or less, 90 at the most on the Nile cruise boats.
Wow.
Is it, I'm assuming, but tell me, the smaller boats are really expensive is my guess. Again, never been on a river on a cruise ship, but I'm hearing small numbers. I'm like, ooh, thinking in my head, personalized service, really good food,
Premier
really expensive.
exclusivity.
Is that true?
Well, it depends on the destination. It depends if you're going to, let's say, the Douro River in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
It might not, of course, be as expensive as going on the Nile because it's much more complicated for crew members and for local guides and in Egypt than it is in Portugal.
Okay.
I mean, they have to find exactly the right people.
Okay.
They pay a premium for their people that, are highly vetted. And
So it's like really any vacation. You could have 20 people both going on a cruise, but one could be almost double in price because of location. Just like
correct.
someone going to Mexico, 20 people going to
Or
Mexico.
like going to Miami and Orange Beach.
All right, there we go. I was gonna say Mexico or Hawaii. You have 20 people going to Hawaii, 20 people going to Mexico. Those prices are going to be much different.
Right,
So it's the
exactly.
same. So depending on destination of this riverboat, that will also determine the price.
Correct. And also, the river cruise people have realized that they needed to expand and not just say, get on my boat here and get off my boat there. They offer pre and post cruise packages. Like
Oh, yeah?
spend 2 nights in Amsterdam beforehand.
Ooh.
And
Oh.
it's all put together by the cruise line. You don't have to do it on your
That
own.
would sell me.
Or you could say spend a night in Basel before or after the cruise, or spend 2 nights in Lisbon before the cruise.
That's perfect. Denise, you can do the cruise and I'll spend 2 nights in Amsterdam.
Let's do it.
For instance, on most of the Danube cruises, they almost always offer you an extension or a pre-extension or a post-extension, either in Budapest or Prague.
Now, my thought is in the past, like when I past them 10, 15 years ago, let's say 15 years ago, I have friends who took cruises. They would book after a cruise their own hotel somewhere. So what people used to have to do on their own, now cruise ships are putting those packages together for
Absolutely.
you.
So it's like one-stop shopping. You don't have to go to the effort like, okay, well, how far am I from the cruise terminal, and am I
Yeah.
once again, they'll do everything for you.
When did this start?
Oh, for the river cruises, pretty much
packages.
the ocean going cruises have been doing that for quite a while. I'd say 15 years at least, maybe
They were
even.
putting together trips.
The higher echelon, tiered higher
Got
end
it. 'Cause
cruises.
I'm like, I had not heard that before.
They were
Okay.
doing they do that.
Okay.
Not so much, like
Carnival.
carnivals.
Yeah.
and,
We know Carnival. I know
and
Carnival's a party.
MSC
Yeah.
Carnival is basically spring break on a boat.
Yeah.
Or it's like it's like Disney World on a boat.
Yeah.
It's one of
And
the
there
two.
is a new entry, although I'm sure the level of service and food products and that kind of thing is much, much higher. But Mr. Branson has now, of course, launched Virgin Cruises.
Oh, yeah.
When did he do
I
that?
can't imagine what that's like.
About a year.
But
maybe
everything
just
he
fit-
does is so amazing.
But it's
Yeah.
it's really geared towards the young person.
Sure.
I had a friend take it, and with her other girlfriends, and they're in their late 40s
Okay.
to mid 50s, and
That's
I mean,
what you
they
define
had-
young people as?
Yeah.
I'm very flattered, by
That
the
is
way.
awesome. Oh my gosh, that's us. I was thinking 20 something.
I know, me
no,
too.
that's
We
no.
go on
I
the
said
Virgin
they
Cruise.
went, but they told me later
Oh.
that the average age on this
Oh.
cruise was probably 30.
Oh, yeah,
All right.
too
I preempted your
35.
compliment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They're too old.
Yeah, we were not
Wah,
being
wah.
complimented. We are too old.
Okay,
We're
so
too old for Richard Branson's new cruise
I
line.
know. He wants young, pretty people.
We're not sexy enough.
No. Okay, so really quick, let's go back to what we were saying before we interrupted you. So the mainstream upper echelon, like the ocean boats, upper echelon, were doing package tours, including stays overnight in a country 15 years ago. The
15,
riverboat.
maybe even 20 years ago.
Wow.
But the riverboats didn't really catch on to that till maybe about, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago. Maybe
Okay.
8 or 10 years ago.
What's the
that they-
benefit of either one? Like if I wanted to go on a cruise, which I do, and he doesn't, but why would you sell me a river? Why would you sell me ocean?
Well, for instance, river cruises go inland. Oceans stop at ports. So that's a very different animal. Plus, a river, and some people like this and some people don't. A river cruise ship is much more intimate.
Okay.
There's maybe a lounge area, not maybe twice the size of the area we're sitting in now. And there's a small restaurant area, and it's always the same restaurant. It's not like you get a choice of 3 or 4 different restaurants like
Right.
you would on a huge ocean cruise. There may be a postage stamp size pool, which there have been on the ones I've been on, but you can't really get more than 10 people in there without it being super crowded.
Right.
It's more geared towards the small ports, the small towns that people want to stop. Let's say they, want to stop in Bucharest, or they want to stop in Rothenburg, or they want to stop in Rudesheim, or they want to stop in really small, interesting places.
Yeah.
Rather than stopping in Rome and Livorno and Bordeaux and Barcelona and those kind of places.
Would it be-
Usually it's people who've been there, done that kind of
I was
thing.
just going to ask you, is it
Yeah.
really more for the well-traveled person to do a riverboat then, because they've already done the big cities?
It is. It's
Okay.
it's pretty much normally that way.
Oh, wow.
That's
Okay.
that people who have. There's usually not any first timers for a riverboat cruise.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. No.
They're really seeking to know a little bit more about the country they've already been, where they've already been to a port.
Yeah,
in that country.
and to go, like I said, to go to some inland spots on,
Right.
on that country, like Nuremberg in Germany, for
Oh, wow.
instance, and that kind of thing.
Okay.
It sounds like also, and tell me if I'm wrong, doing a port trip, a boat trip that goes to the ports, when you compared to a river, when you go to the river, you're really going for the location, whereas a port boat, an ocean boat, you're doing the boat experience because you're getting
That's
the
correct.
spa and the 10,000
Right.
pools and the
Yeah.
5 different dining halls.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's exactly that. It's a much more laid back. Nobody dresses for dinner at
Got it.
all.
Right.
It's a much more laid back situation.
On
you
the
know?
river. On the river.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay, so we've been beating around the bush, but now it's time to get into it.
Yup, let's do it.
You tiptoed around it a little bit ago, and that is Carnival Cruise Line. I'm predicting comes at a price point and probably a clientele point that's a little lower on the ladder than some of the other places. Tell us about the best cruise lines that you think are out there, and sort of rank them down toward the lessers.
Okay, that's pretty easy. I used to start out saying Carnival. Think of it as Motel 6.
Oh, that's actually a great image, though.
I
That is
actually
a great
believe you
image.
because
Okay.
once I got to a Holland America ship, even though it's probably just like a Holiday Inn.
Holiday Inn.
at that point.
There we go.
It was still a step up for where I was,
Yeah.
for where I was coming from.
Right. And so they're trying very hard these days to entice that middle of the road. I'll just start with this. That middle budget people like Royal Caribbean and rock climbing walls and then they have also taken a portion of the ships and tried to attract the higher echelon clients by saying, okay, you have your own dining rooms, this is the
Oh,
Aqua Club,
really?
you have your own pool, it's like a ship within a ship. It's like being on the club level of a hotel.
Right,
Got
right.
it. The riffraff
Right.
is on the bottom.
It's the fast pass. It's the fast pass equivalent.
So, but they have a ship that they own also own the line Celebrity,
Okay.
which is an excellent. I hate to even call them middle line. I think they're maybe just above middle line.
Are they a Marriott?
So No.
They're like the Lexus.
Oh, you mean in comparison?
Yes, we're talking hotels.
Yeah,
Like,
I'd say a Marriott. That's a
Okay.
good comparison.
Okay.
You know, maybe even a Westin.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
So, so
And
they
it's called the what? Celebrity?
Celebrity
Celebrity
Cruise
They're
Line.
Cruise
owned
lines.
by Carnival.
They are not. They're
Okay.
owned
No.
by Royal Caribbean.
Okay. Okay.
But so that's they pretty much have something to fit everybody's budget, and yet you're on a higher tiered line.
Oh, okay.
And then you mentioned Holland America.
Yeah.
I think I've only booked one Holland America, and the people were in their 70s because that's
it was
pretty
a
much
really
their
old crowd when I was
that's
there.
still pretty much their niche.
Is that right?
Yes.
Why? Tell me.
I it's just been that way. I couldn't really give you a positive,
Do they advertise?
reason.
Wait, hold on. What are their trips? If they're
I
doing
think it's
people
I
over
think it's
70,
word
what's
of
the-
mouth.
They don't even
Really true.
advertise?
So they do a lot of Alaska.
Yeah.
They do a lot of Alaska.
That's how I ended up in LA. I was doing the Caribbean tour, and then they went to San Pedro in California, and I had the opportunity, which I will always kick myself for. I had the opportunity to stay on for 1 week to do one Alaskan run, and I said, I'm going to be on the West Coast. I'll go up to Alaska myself, and I've never done it.
Yeah.
Such a
Okay,
such
we
a
wouldn't
missed
have
opportunity.
met. We wouldn't have met. So you really kick yourself?
We still would have met.
No,
We didn't
wouldn't
meet
have
that
met.
week.
No, we wouldn't have met because you know how it is. Everything would have changed. You may not have had that couch that you surfed on and all of that.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right. My friend would have been gone by then.
You kick yourself. Okay.
Moving
Let's
on.
call it serendipity. Okay,
Yeah,
say
yeah.
something good.
There's a reason I haven't been to Alaska. It's all Denise's fault.
But they also do a lot of the Baja Mexico coast, those cruises, Caribbean cruises. They don't do hardly any. I wouldn't say hardly any, but they don't do all that many European waters, oceans.
Oh, yeah, no.
Or exotics. They don't do many exotics. And when
Yeah.
I say exotics, I'm talking like Australia, New Zealand, Tahiti, the Cook Islands, maybe hit Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, any of those places, any of those exotics.
No, I mean, when we were visiting with you last time, we talked about New Orleans quite a bit. And one of the reasons I was there was because that was my port city. And I would say that is the most exotic place I had visited.
Holland America.
On the Holland America. I mean, I'd already been all over the Caribbean and parts of Mexico
Yeah.
at that point, so I was a little spoiled brat a bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm going to be honest. I had my own cabin on that ship,
Yeah.
and frankly, the food was way better. So,
Yeah.
you
Because
know,
old people complain.
and the
You know that, right?
They do complain about everything. But the pace was slow enough where it was like when I was working I was a videographer. I should say that outright. I was a videographer, and when I was on the Carnival Cruise Line, I was up at 6 and in bed at 2 a.m. So
Oh, they partied.
it was a lot. They definitely partied, and I would have chances to take a 2 or 3 hour nap here or there during the day. But it was go, go, go. When I got to Holland America, everybody was in bed by 9:30 p.m. The minute the dinner show was over, that's a wrap.
That's it. Yeah, right.
So
right. Exactly.
it was nice.
Yeah. So I would say that Celebrity is a really good choice for people who want to choose between, okay, do we want, deck number 8 and get, the much bigger suite, or do we want deck number 5 and take a smaller suite? And whereas, for instance, on Silver Sea and on Crystal, which is now coming out again after I took their last cruise on Crystal before they were chased down by the U.S. Marshals for
I heard about that.
for not paying their gas
they didn't
bill.
Pay their gas
Their-
bill. Yes, yes.
And we got off the boat. The people got on the boat. They left. Here came the marshals
Yep.
after them. They
I read all
got to
about that.
Because of-
Belize.
I read about
Because
it.
of taxation?
They were
No, they didn't pay. They didn't pay their fueling bill.
Yeah, they'd go to the port and not pay. They'd get fueled up and not pay.
They were like gassing up and just
Yeah.
leaving the tank.
Yeah.
Wow, that's funny.
That's why we had to make. We actually on that cruise, one of the crew members became very ill, and we had to make a little detour over to Puerto Rico to San Juan,
Oh, wow.
and they wouldn't gas him up.
because they probably owed them money.
That's right.
But
Word got out.
in any case, Crystal is back because Abercrombie and Kent has bought them.
Okay.
Oh, so they'll be paying their bills.
Yeah, yes.
And how
So
where do
they've
they
got two-
rank on our hotel scale?
Oh, I'd say that Crystal and Silver Sea are right up there, and I would call them the Ritz-Carltons.
Okay.
Oh,
Those are
okay.
the really
So-
nice
Yeah.
boats.
Okay,
Got it.
let's put this in dollar perspective then. One person.
And then there's Regent. They're right up there too.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
Okay. How much is it for one person to go on I don't know, what is it, a 7-day, 10-day cruise? I don't know what the minimum is.
Okay. Well, here's a kind of I'm glad you said for one person, because this is the really bad thing about the cruise industry, and actually most tour operators as well. If you're a single person, you're basically SOL,
Why?
because they charge you what's called a single fee. So you have to pay sometimes as much as 200%.
Yeah.
So if it's $5,000 for a person, but you're going by yourself, for that cabin is now $10,000.
Oh,
Because
it's
they can
awful.
normally fit 2 people in the cabin.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
But more,
So
but
find a
now,
friend,
but
find a friend and go on a
once
cruise.
again, the new trend is that I'm seeing these cruise lines offering lots and lots of non-single supplement cruises offered. So no single supplement. You come by yourself, it's $5,000. It's $5,000.
Really?
I'm seeing that happen a lot,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which is really
Well,
good.
there's a lot of single people out there. These dating
Yeah,
apps
I mean,
are like
especially
everywhere.
there are single cruises, right, where people are trying to meet each other or whatever.
Yeah,
Is that
but
less
that's
frequent?
mostly on Carnival.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, so if you want to meet someone
I'm
with
just
a
going
little
with what I know,
substance,
Judy.
if you want to meet with someone with substance, you want to be on a Regent cruise, babe. You want to be at the you want to be at the Beverly Hills Polo Lounge. That's
Well,
a
you-
Regent cruise
And it-
line.
and it's-
You married Carnival
I did.
material.
I did.
so
And
Totally
sorry.
it's mainly the niche of I'd say widows or divorcees or whatever, in the because those cruise lines, Regent, Crystal, Silver Sea, they hire gentlemen who will dance with you.
No way.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
And
You get your
Yeah.
own gigolo on
And
these
they-
boats?
dance partner.
and even
dance
and if you
partner.
if you so
Dance
wish, you could
partner.
ask him to join you for dinner the next, whatever. I mean, it's
Oh.
pretty.
Nice.
And they have dance classes,
Okay,
and,
maybe
and these
gigolo.
gentlemen,
Special emphasis on the whatever.
So that's a thing they've been doing for quite some time,
Oh,
though. For
that's
quite some
nice.
time. It's just that
Interesting.
nobody
wonder
really.
if you become a pen pal with him.
All
or
the
if they
single
Facebook
ladies,
friends.
all the single ladies. We know where you're headed this
Yeah,
fall.
because that's what I mean. They go there to be entertained and to be,
You want to be by
you know,
yourself.
and
Yeah,
right. Who
yeah.
wants to
Yeah.
go back
I
to
agree.
or go play bridge at 9:30 at night?
No,
you know.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so how much is a one-person rate for like the Regent, the Ritz-Carlton of the cruise line?
okay, so let's say you're going to take. Okay, so I have a client that I've had forever, and I will probably still have him forever and ever.
You just can't shake this guy.
I'll lose all my teeth and not be able to talk on the phone, and I'll still.
You'll
have
still
him.
be typing on those keys, that keyboard. You'll still be
That's
typing on
good.
it.
But so he and his wife are going on a cruise that is simply around the UK. So it's going to start in Dover,
Okay.
and it's going to go up around, and it'll stop at a couple of places in the North Sea Channel and up there in the Hebrides Islands, and then down around up around Scotland.
Okay.
And then they're going to cross over and do Belfast. Well, I mean,
Nice.
they'll port near Belfast, and then down to Dublin, and then across back over to Holyhead and down to Cardiff, Wales, and then back to Dover.
That sounds amazing.
So that's, I'm pretty sure it's a 12-day cruise.
Uh-huh.
They were not happy because I could not get them the Penthouse Suite because they didn't book. I mean, this is how far out people are booking these things.
Wow.
What year?
This year in June. And
Okay.
I booked it for him probably last year in June.
Oh, a year out, and he couldn't
Yeah.
get the Penthouse Suite.
Right.
Okay.
But so here's what the cruise lines, to entice people to get back, have been doing lately. They've been saying, give us your deposit of like $5,000, and you've got up till 60 days beforehand to cancel, and we'll give you 25% we'll give you 3,500 of that back, because that means they've got your money all
Yeah.
that time
Yeah, they're holding it.
to use
Yeah.
and to build more ships with and to make
Pay their
improvements
gas
on their
bill.
ships. Yeah, pay their
Totally.
gas bill.
Totally. Yeah.
So for that reason, people book like crazy, but don't cancel until it's time for they have to come up with that last $4,000.
Are you serious? So then that penthouse suite could be on hold for up to 60 days before somebody cancels.
Literally, he is going in. They are going in. Let's see. The cruise actually leaves on June 2nd, and so they're. I think I got them the upgrade to the penthouse about 6 weeks ago.
Oh, you
Oh,
had to
you
wait
got
for
it. You
someone to
scored.
cancel.
Yeah. You just got to
awesome.
you got to persevere. You got to call them
How
every
much
day
is the
because
penthouse
they don't, I mean,
yeah.
he's listed, but if his agent doesn't call, then it's the next person down or
course.
whatever.
Right.
Of course.
So they did get the penthouse, but prior to having the penthouse, they were booked in a category D, which means she was very unhappy. She did not have a butler in the category
Okay.
D.
Okay.
I get that.
No, you do not. Go ahead.
So and it was a lower deck, like maybe deck 7 instead of deck 10, and it was a regular suite, even though it was midship, because you don't want to be. Most savvy cruisers don't want to be forward and don't want to be aft. I don't mind being
Seasickness.
aft. I don't mind. Well, I don't have seasickness, so I don't mind being aft. I kind of
Right.
enjoy being aft and seeing the town or whatever you're leaving right
Okay.
off your
Yeah.
balcony
Okay.
as you're,
You just
Headed
get
out.
jostled around a lot less in the middle of the boat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's close to the elevators that way. You
Oh,
don't have
yeah,
to walk
good
half
point.
the ship to the elevator either.
Okay.
So in any case, at that point, it was, this was including airfare, because this is also a new trend that all of these cruise lines are offering airfare because they've started contracting with the airlines
Oh,
themselves.
okay.
So you wonder why airfare is so high. It's because all the cruise lines have taken up all the cheap
Great.
tickets.
Interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Did
That's
not expect that.
no,
Because
you're
for
right.
instance,
That's
they were offering a special $2,100 for them to fly Chicago to London,
Wow.
nonstop, of course,
Okay.
and then
Business
Paris business class,
That's not
and then
bad.
Paris
My gosh,
back
you're
to
kidding? That's so good.
no, that's like half price.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
like amazing.
I mean, I don't know if you've looked at any business class
no,
tickets lately.
no,
but,
Judy, that is not on our list ever of business class travel.
I just bought a Subaru.
but it would that particular fare would probably be normally 36 to 4,000 a person.
Okay.
So they've started doing that. So that was included in this price I'm going to give you.
Give it to me.
Plus, Regent has now started to give you one free shore excursion every day.
Oh, no.
So
Are you
you don't even
kidding?
have to. You don't have to be okay. Do we do this $200 one or do we do this $400? They give you not necessarily the highest ones, but they'll give you at least 2 choices of a free shore excursion every day.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's hear this price.
I know.
Okay.
It's a lot of buildup. I'm getting nervous.
I know.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna
so
guess. Go ahead.
it was 30,000.
Per person.
No.
15,000
So
per person.
15 per person.
For how many days? 10?
12.
12.
At the Ritz-Carlton on the water.
Yeah. And
With airfare and
with airfare.
and
And
choice
shore
of an
excursion.
excursion a day.
Right. And
That's
you
expensive,
do
though.
also
It is expensive.
and what also is important for some people who are looking at these cruise lines too is you have a couple, let's say, and they don't drink.
Yes.
Well, maybe that type of cruise isn't best for them. Maybe they need to look at celebrity unless they've just got money to blow and they don't care.
okay.
Right.
Because from the moment you step on board Crystal, Regent,
It's
Silver
champagne.
Sea,
It's
you come back from an excursion and they're sitting there with a glass of prosecco waiting for
Right,
you.
right.
oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Just what a Napoleon 18th brandy is for your
Well, when you're
after-
paying $15,000, then that's kind of the level of service
Right.
that you would expect from that. So,
Yeah.
Okay, that brings up an interesting point. Then, if you're not a drinker, because it sounds like alcohol and good alcohol is expensive.
Yes.
What would you do? Where would you go?
Well, the other cruise lines do what they offer packages. But they're different packages they offer. So Celebrity Norwegian does it, Carnival does it, Celebrity does it, Royal Caribbean does it. But it can get expensive too, because if you have one person who drinks in that cabin and takes that package, both people have to take it. That's
What?
just the
Okay,
industry
hold on.
norm.
If
Wow.
I'm going with my girlfriend and she's an alcoholic, I have
And
to
you
go
don't
with
drink?
her. Yeah, I have to go with her alcoholic package.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
you
so
have to pay
crazy.
the $450. She's going to pay, and a lot of them, even especially like, let's go back to Norwegian and MSC and those. You even have to buy a soda package.
What?
Yes,
Really?
I saw that.
I mean, you don't get
You've seen that?
I did.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen that. Yeah.
yeah
When were you looking at
a
cruises?
soda and juice package. I mean, you can't just.
A soda and juice
Yeah.
package.
No, for sure. Yeah.
So it's a matter, of relative to.
I get around.
Oh, I know.
Go ahead.
So if you can afford the type of client service, customer service, and the difference, in the food quality, which although I hear Celebrity is excellent food
that right?
quality. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I can't say enough about that
I
cruise
know
line
you
because
like that cruise line.
well, because I have a lot of friends who are in that, mid category, and they just, they say we don't need champagne at every
Right.
5 minutes, and we don't need to go to the Thomas Keller restaurant,
Right.
twice on the cruise, and we may not do every shore excursion, so why should we pay for the
Right.
whole thing when we don't? So Celebrity is a good niche for them because they can get as high. I mean, they can get a penthouse on Celebrity if they want
Okay,
to.
how much then is a Celebrity? Let's talk about we're not talking about penthouse. We're just talking like we did before. Deck
Well,
7.
it's been a while since I've done one. Let's say it's been about 3 years.
Okay.
Okay.
So
And it was it was kind of it was the fjords. It was to Copenhagen and Oslo
Yeah.
and Bergen and out to all those ice caps, I call them.
Okay.
All
Yeah, yeah.
those and if I remember, so there was no airfare involved.
Okay.
And there were no short excursions
included.
included, and neither one of them drink. So
Okay.
they did not take a drink package, anything
Okay.
like that. And I think it was a quite a long cruise. It was at least 12 days.
Okay.
Okay.
But I think it was somewhere around like 5,000 a person.
Wow.
Well, that makes sense because you don't have the $2,100 cost of the business class ticket. You don't have the high end champagne and prosecco and scotch or whatever they're serving, and you don't have the shore excursions.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. I was going to say it's got to be probably around $5,000.
Yeah.
5 to 7.
it's
I was
Pretty
going to
good
guess.
though to see the
Right.
I
Scandinavian
was gonna-
countries in that
yeah.
manner.
Do you think Celebrity has now caught up with everyone else and they're doing the packages? Like they're adding the airfare now. They're adding
Are
the
those
shore.
options
yeah,
built in?
they
Or
are
not
starting.
built in?
They're starting to add the airfare as well, but I don't think they'll go to that all inclusive situation ever. Where I mean, it's because their clientele are
It's different.
much more diverse than the people who
Yep.
always.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a client who he wouldn't step foot on any ship other than a Regent,
Okay.
and Ginger
Uh-huh.
was probably cried her eyes out when Carnival got shut down because she would never step on a ship other than Crystal.
Wait, you said
that's a-
Carnival. You meant
Crystal.
Crystal.
I meant
Crystal.
yeah,
Okay.
Crystal.
Okay. Crystal.
Yeah.
And Crystal is up there with Regent.
Silver Sea and Regent.
Okay.
Yes.
Ooh.
All right. So, all right. That's for international seas. What about local, like United States? Like, are there cruises here that you would ever like? Okay, I've never been on a cruise. Are you going to send me to like a European cruise, or would you send me to like let's just hit local, but get your feet wet a little bit?
When
like,
you say
no pun-
local, you mean like Caribbean or something?
yeah, like I don't know. Like you mentioned,
So
None of Saints.
none of the higher end they do not do that.
oh,
But Carnival
They don't
does
go
that.
to Ocho Rios.
They do
Okay, they just don't go there.
Well, sometimes they do,
I know, I'm just kidding.
but like Carnival, for instance, even Royal Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
they'll do these little 3-4 day
okay.
just so just to get off land and get on a ship, and they'll leave from Fort Lauderdale, let's say, and they'll hit Nassau
Okay.
in the Bahamas, and then every cruise line has their own what they call their private island, I believe, for I believe for Royal Caribbean, it's called Coco Cay.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you just basically get off to go to the beach. They come out and do a barbecue for you, and that's
Okay.
pretty much it. And that's kind of what you're talking about there.
Okay.
And sometimes you can get a deal on those for as little as like, I don't know, it's like $800 a person.
Oh yeah, they're really cheap. I've seen those.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
600 or 800 a person, depending on the cabin.
Okay.
If you
Right.
want to go with a window and a window and no balcony, then you could probably get lower than that, maybe.
Wow. Okay. And then, are there any river cruises for the United States?
Yeah, there are the ones. The American Steamship Company is one of them. It's probably the most well known. They do the Snake River out west, and then they'll do the Mississippi. Starting maybe in up somewhere in Minnesota even, or they might start as far down as Louisville and then take you over and then they'll hit like Natchez and end up in New Orleans and along there. Or there's the coastal part, as I said, that might start in Virginia
Oh, okay.
or even Baltimore and come down the coast and hit Wilmington, Charleston, Savannah, and they don't come to Jacksonville because we don't have it's too hard for them to get into that port and into the river. And besides, our river flows north.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So are those expensive? Would you recommend something like that for someone who's never been on a cruise? You're like,
No,
oh, why?
because they're number one, they're very expensive.
What?
And-
Wait, I did not anticipate you saying that.
No, they're very expensive.
Like what? Give me a number.
Okay, so there's one that's going in August from Boston and Bal Harbor and up the coast of Maine.
Yeah.
And then back down Rhode Island and back up in Boston. So it's just Boston round trip. And it's, I think it may hit Cape Cod as well. And it's 9 days, I think it is. And there's no shorts. I mean, there's a couple of places where they take you off and take you to specialty,
Right.
excursions, but they aren't every single day. And then there's pay as you go drinks,
Oh, okay.
and then
There's no pampering on this ship
That's
at
going
all.
to be pricey for a lot of people.
Oh my gosh, I know.
and there's no airfare inclusive thing because it'd be too hard to get people into
Okay.
Baltimore. It's not
Yeah.
like, okay, they're flying into Rome.
Right.
You know what? I have 18 people flying into Baltimore. They can't afford to contract with an airline for that.
Right.
So just basics, just basic, about between $7,000 a person.
Wow.
How many days did you say again?
10,
Nine
9,
or
10.
10.
Oh, why is it so expensive?
You know what? There's no rhyme or reason to it. I haven't figured that out either. The only thing that I mean, because this touches on a subject that I'm not as familiar with, and the only thing that I can think of is that the upkeep and the regulations and the Port Authority fees and that kind of thing are so much higher in the States than they are in overseas countries.
Yeah, makes sense, I guess.
Are they popular, these river tours?
I guess they're pretty popular.
So people are actually taking them at $7,000 a pop
Yeah.
when you can spend that money and go to a different country.
You could drive to 4 Ritz-Carltons in 9 days and stay there.
I can't believe it that people are
Yeah.
actually purchasing these.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, I haven't had a ton of interest in them, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
You asked earlier in our the other session, you had asked about trend, and I meant to mention this, and I think we got off on another subject, but train travel in Canada is now starting to trend back higher again.
No way, really.
Oh.
I mean, you can take program train trips, tours that start in Banff and end in Montreal,
Oh,
even.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
train trip.
When did this start, Judy?
Well, actually, it's been going on, but people just haven't really, gotten into train travel so much. But now it's back on on track now, and Canada's opened back up now because they've been shut down for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yes.
were shut down a
Right.
lot longer than the US.
Because I did a couple of what they call the Rocky Mountain train tours.
Okay.
So they start in Vancouver, and they take you up to Banff and Lake Louise and all around there, Calgary.
Okay.
So it's very interesting, and you're during the day you're on these domed trains with open platforms, so you get to see everything.
Oh wow.
And then you'll stop at usually their hotels they're high scale for Rocky Mountaineer trains,
Oh wow.
and they're all Fairmonts.
So
Fairmont hotels. Okay, so
Okay.
how many days is a train and how much is that?
That's also pretty expensive.
It sounds like it would be. It sounds kind of
Yeah.
bougie.
And you're staying at Fairmonts.
Yeah.
So, and when you're staying at the hotel, it's not like, okay, you got off the train, so the drinks and the food are on your own. No, that's included still.
At the hotel?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
It is a hassle though. You have to take your suitcase on and off the train. Like
No, you don't. Well, you do.
because you're spending the night at the hotel.
But some, not just one night. Usually they'll stay 2 to 3 nights in one place
okay.
because they'll take you out on train trips to like local short trips.
Oh, I like that.
Rather than just go, so
actually
there, I
like
think
that.
there were just 3 different hotels where they
Oh my
stayed.
gosh,
in
okay,
the,
how
in the
much is
12
that?
night-
Train
Yeah,
enthusiast.
how much
all
is
of
that? I'm just picturing myself like I see the high speed rail in my head and like me sipping on like a little something and like
Oh, forget the high speed.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not high speed rail.
I know
I'm
it's
dreaming of the Orient Express.
okay, so how much is something like that?
I think it was, and this was about 4 years ago,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
So it was pre-COVID because,
Okay.
as I said, Canada's been shut down. I think it was probably about $5,000 a person minimum.
Actually, that sounds great to me.
and
though.
that's
I
just
swear
the
to God, that
just
sounds
the,
so good.
the train. That's not getting to
Yeah, I know.
Vancouver
Yeah, yeah.
and back from,
Is the popularity come back since COVID? Have people been requesting it?
Well, people have been very shy of Canada lately, though, because
Oh.
they've been so shut down, and they're scared to death to book anything because they're afraid they'll lock down again. Because I have a friend who had a trip, canceled the first time because of COVID, and then supposedly they opened up again, and it was all scheduled again, and then they shut it off again. So
oh, wow.
yeah.
That's crazy. So I
Yeah.
would be a little gun shy then too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We're in 2023. I don't know if they're going to.
I'm not afraid of Canada.
I don't know. I'd take the risk for the train ride for sure.
Well, it's not being afraid of Canada; it's them being afraid of
us.
us.
I know.
Actually,
That's a legitimate concern. We are Americans after all. Okay, so I have a question though about either European, Mediterranean, you name it. What if for the value, even if it's expensive, what would if somebody said to you, okay, I have an open checkbook right now, what cruise would you send somebody on anywhere in the world?
actually, it's my favorite is actually not a total cruise, but so I'll give you my favorite cruise, and then
Okay.
I'll give you my favorite where cruise was a portion of it,
Okay.
and that it's run by a cruise company.
Okay.
Okay, I think my favorite would be the Greek Isles and the Turkish coast. I went
Okay.
on a cruise down the Turkish coast. They call it the Emerald Coast of Turkey.
Okay.
And it hit places that just people don't go to.
Yeah.
Antalya, Marmaris, Dietli, where we got off the boat and got onto these little small boats that are shaped like Viking boats, and they take you down this river, and you can see the burial caves. You can still even
Oh.
see inside them.
No way.
Wow.
Because it's a little known place. I mean, the town's like 2 square blocks
Yeah,
itself,
I mean,
but there's
I've never
amazing
heard of it
things to
until you just said
see.
it.
Yeah, it's called Diekli.
Okay.
And then Marmaris is like going to the Monte Carlo
Oh,
or
pretty.
the where does everybody go? The Cannes
Oh,
Film
yeah,
Festival. It's
it's,
like going to the
yeah.
Cannes of
Turkey.
of Turkey,
Oh, wow.
because you get off the boat and you're in a private dockyard that's gated in.
Oh, wow.
It's not even a public dockyard, so the cruise ship is even gated into that area.
Wow.
Wow.
So nobody gets in there, and boat after boat is the emirs, the sheikhs,
Oh,
they're all,
wow.
you know,
incredible.
I've got a bigger, more beautiful yacht than you do. And nobody ever sees. And then all lined are these beautiful cafes, and right behind them are discos and jewelry stores.
Oh.
Because at 9:00
You
at
see her
night,
eyes light up when
know.
she said that?
yeah, because
Of
at
course.
9:00 at night, off comes the 20-something blondes off those yachts.
Oh, of
Oh.
course. Of course.
Of course.
And the shopping is open till 1 a.m.
No way.
So they told me midnight shopping.
Oh, you're
here.
not going there.
And behind this
You're
still a part of
I'm
this
going.
enclave, so it's still gated in. There are all these jewelry stores there. So
Oh my gosh, this is
I set
incredible.
up
How come we've never heard of this town?
a tour to Ephesus for Carlin, my girlfriend, because she was on the cruise with me.
Uh-huh.
And she went with a couple other travel agents who were also on the cruise who had never been to Ephesus. And
Okay.
I'd been there twice. So I said, I'm not taking the 3-hour ride up there and back. No way. So she didn't get back till like 8:30 that night and got on the boat. And she said, I just want to grab something to eat. I said, okay, grab something to eat, take a shower, do whatever you want, because we're going midnight shopping. She said, what? I said, oh, yes, we're going midnight shopping.
That's awesome. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
why
So
not? I guess.
what cruise line
Where else
is
could you do
this?
it? Yeah, I was going to say,
It's-
what cruise line
It's
is this?
it's another cruise line that have just actually refurbished their boats, and they're trying to get back in the niche, and because their boats were out of for several years while they were refurbishing them. So I'd put them right along there with Celebrity, actually. Azamara. The name of it is Azamara.
And they're the ones,
Azamora.
And they only have 3 ships.
and they're the
actually.
ones that do this
Maybe
trip
4.
that you just described.
Well, they did before.
Okay, got
You
it.
know, but that was 2016, and there's been a lot of political things that have happened since then.
I mean,
you
the
know.
fact that you're still referring to that as one of your best trips,
Oh,
that's pretty
yes.
incredible.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And then
tell
we
us
went
about
to
the
a
other-
smaller islands of Greece too.
Okay.
Like Patmos, and not just Santorini and Mykonos. Santorini and Mykonos.
Got
you
it.
know.
Right.
But the best cruise, which wasn't actually a cruise except for 4 days of it,
Okay.
was Africa.
Oh.
Oh.
So Amma Waterways is the cruise line that puts together this particular trip.
Okay.
So you start with 3 nights pre-trip in Cape Town.
Cape Town. Okay.
And you get taken down to the Cape of Good Hope. You get taken to a fishing village along the way there. You get taken up to Table Mountain. You go out to Stellenbosch to great vineyards. It's the only place I ever did a wine tasting that was a chocolate and wine tasting.
Oh, those are my favorite. I do chocolate every time we go to Napa. It's only been a couple times.
So
but
that was great. And then they flew us up to Zimbabwe.
Oh, okay.
And there we stayed at Victoria Falls at a hotel at Victoria Falls. So
Okay.
naturally we
Oh,
saw
yeah.
Victoria Falls, and then we went on a private train car. It's like two cars. I mean
Okay.
the driving part of the car,
Oh my
and
gosh.
the car where we were all
That's
given
so
hors
funny.
d'oeuvres and
Uh-huh.
drinks and
pulls
taken
up
over
and there's
this
just 2 cars.
this
Yeah.
famous bridge that goes into Zambia,
Oh.
Okay.
because it's very famous for the bridge builder was the same guy who built that bridge where the lions killed all those people later on in Kenya. It was
Oh.
the same guy,
Oh, wow.
and they had all the same kind of situation there, just not as bad, where they were all Indian workers for the most part,
Oh, wow.
and some Asian, and they had to camp down in the riverbeds, and they were snapped up by a few lions.
No way.
Oh, jeez Louise.
Yeah, so
oh,
it's
my
got
gosh.
and
It is
so it's-
Africa, for God's sake. Yeah.
And so that was very interesting. And then they flew us to Kasane, which is in Botswana.
Okay.
And from Botswana, now that was really interesting because you had to come out of Zimbabwe, you had to get a visa. And then even though you were going through Botswana, only to drive through Botswana to get to Namibia.
Oh,
I really feel like we should have a map on this table while she's
I know.
talking. I'm just looking at her with a blank face going, I have no idea what you're saying, but okay, I'm following.
So
They're all the right African buzzwords, though.
my
so
God. when we
I'm
got
it's
literally
like, I've heard of that place. I would
so
love
it
to
was
go.
in
I've
3
heard of that
countries
place.
one day.
Not me.
Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe.
That's awesome.
Wow.
But the boat was anchored in Namibia on the Chobe River. And one part of the river is Namibia, and the other part of the river is Botswana.
That's their border.
Yeah, so we were on that boat for 4 days. And with the name of it is the Zambezi Queen, which
Oh.
I just thought, I've been on the Zambezi Queen.
That's great.
It was great because it was all about what we saw and the guides. It wasn't about luxury. The bathroom was about as big as this table.
Okay.
Right.
Everybody had the same cabin. There weren't any
Okay.
suites or anything like that, but there were only 13 of us.
Oh, this was like basically one of your river cruises. You were telling me about the
boat only
even
holds
more
the boat only holds 16.
right, but the point being that like it's really all about the place, not the boat.
Yes, exactly. And so we came. 4 days of that was just incredible.
Wow.
Incredible of what you would see on the river and getting off the boat and see in the safaris. And then they took us back over to Victoria Falls, and we flew then to Johannesburg,
Okay.
where we just did an overnight, 2 nights in Johannesburg, and then we went down to Kruger National Park. So the boat part of it was only, but you asked me what was that? It's
Yeah.
put on by a river cruise. The whole tour is
Yeah. What's the
and
name
it
of the
was
company again?
AMA Waterways,
Amma Waterways. Okay.
Yeah, but the boat you were on was called the Queen. What was it?
the Zambezi Queen.
Okay.
Zambezi
okay.
Queen.
Wow, very
Yes.
cool.
Why do they always name them
Yeah.
queens if they're river boats? It's interesting.
I don't know. Well, they had another one called the Chobe Princess.
Oh.
Oh,
And
all
that's one that was contracted out, but I guess Amma had the contract for the couple of years with the Zambezi
okay.
Queen, and that's the one they liked the best. The crew is incredible, and the what you would call the cruise director or the director of that boat and his partner, they actually lived there. They would take a little motor launch from the boat over to their house on the
Wow.
and all of the workers that worked on the boat would meet them down at their house on the shore to be brought in over to the boat every day.
Oh, on the Zambezi Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's my question. You're on this boat for how many days?
4 days.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, with 14 people, did you get sick of them? But after 4 days, no. It's like
Well,
you're
yeah,
just,
but I was with these people all for
Yeah, she was still
17
with them
days.
everywhere else
Oh,
and all
okay,
that.
17 days we were all
So
together.
you were 4 days on the boat, but then the other 13 days, you were on land with them.
Yes, we were at Victoria Falls,
get sick of them?
Johannesburg. No,
Okay.
they were great. Of course, there's always going to be one person that's annoying, but
Annoying,
but you let it go. You say, "Look where I am. I can't be annoyed."
That's
you know,
that's a very good way to look at it. Yeah.
yeah.
So you're saying Celebrity Cruise Line is really among the best values out there.
I do. I think that's true. I think
Okay.
celebrity is one of the best values for the kind of service you get and the quality of the crew and the food and everything. I think the rooms, the cabins, I think it's probably the best as far as, if you're not just wanting to say, I have to have a butler or
Right.
something like
Got it.
that.
Right.
You know.
All right. So we appreciate all of your expertise on cruises. I think Denise is going to be giving me the full court press to take
yeah.
her on one soon
Uh-oh.
after hearing everything from you, especially the trends and everything you have to offer. We truly appreciate every time we get to sit with you, your 25 years of being a travel advisor. And I cannot thank you enough for hosting us again in your wonderful house.
No, it was enjoyable.
Thank you.
I really had a good time.
Thank you so much.
I never get tired of talking about travel.
Oh, well, we may end up doing another one. Maybe we'll just do like a Cousin Judy, like drop
Yeah.
in, like, hey, what do you think of this place?
I know for sure. I smell a spinoff.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. We're going to take this one out.
Empty nest, full tank.
See you guys next week.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.